Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
And that trend has been happening for a number of years already, but I think it'll be accelerated. The trend to outsource services, the specialized services particularly, and cleaning will, as I mentioned, I think have there'll be more of a heightened awareness, not to say it was neglected before, but I think they'll just be more conscious of it, both to protect, to help their customers, but also importantly to help their employees.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
What is up, all my Slick Talkers? It has been way too long since I published an episode, and I'm glad to say that I currently have some free time. For a lot of my listeners that don't know, I am part of the Army National Guard in Washington State, and I was activated and got called up to help with support for the state, regarding COVID-19 and just the pandemic at hand right now. And so that's why I've been a little absent, a little quiet. But I'm excited because this episode was recorded right when I got back from London, and this is something that I think definitely comes into play when it comes to COVID-19 and the pandemic and how the industry has been affected. So you'll hear myself and David, who's the president of Renue Systems based out in Chicago, discuss what they do as a company, but also how, as a cleaning company, one of the biggest ones in the hospitality industry for hotels and all that type of stuff, is that how are they expecting to come out on top? Where are the things that are in place now? And of course, just getting to talk about future, processes and kind of expectations of what's to come after we get to a more calmer normal. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. I'm still working on getting, more guests and more episodes published. So thank you guys for your patience as I'm currently in and out of missions. I was just out in Bremerton, Washington, assisting a testing site for about 2.5 weeks. So we were in full, hazmat gear, testing patients and citizens in the county of Bremerton in Washington. And so that was really cool to be a part of and to assist the community. But if you guys want to follow more or see more, you can go on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, and I'll be giving out updates when I can. So thank you guys and enjoy this episode.
He's kind of like the Joe Rogan of the hospitality industry right now.
All right, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and today I have David Grossman from Renue Systems out in Chicago.
That's right. We're just outside of the wonderful city.
Excellent. Well, go ahead and let's introduce yourself, who you are, your background, and what you do currently at Renue.
Well, Willa, thank you. Nice to be here, and to all the listeners. My name is David Grossman. I head a company called Renue Systems that has been in existence since 1991. We started out as a general cleaning company outside of Chicago, and one day came across a hotel, and ever since then, that's been our primary focus. So we handle deep cleaning services. So typically not the third shift janitorial or the housekeeping, but rather the periodic, more intensive project-based cleaning to address almost any need inside and even outside a hotel, ranging from the carpets in the hallways, the drapes and furniture in the guest rooms, tile and grout in the bathroom, swimming pool decks. We're good at restoring and polishing marble and other stone. And then so many of the specialty needs in the hotels, odors and stains, cooking issues, smoking issues. And then we've over the years broadened our service scope. So a number of specialty needs whether there's stains in the carpets or the chandelier cleaning, mattress cleaning. A new service is replacement of mattresses and recycling of mattresses. So a very wide variety of services that we take care of. And we now have 30 locations across the company. We're across the country and in 5 other countries. We operate primarily as a franchise model where we do have one company location, still the original one in Chicago. So we use that to test new services and to have a real good pulse of the business. And then the other offices are owned and operated by our franchisees who come to us with a wide variety of backgrounds. But we think they have the right skill set and, importantly, personality that fits well with our culture. And then we provide them a lot of training and ongoing support. So that's what we do. We're preferred vendor with many of the big brands. So we take care of a lot of the limited select service and then a number of the full service properties throughout our 30 offices, the big brands, as well as a lot of independent and boutique properties too.
That's awesome. I love the fit of the cleaning services that go into the stuff that obviously housekeeping and maintenance can't hit all the time, and it's really hard, especially when you try to do like stuff like that yearly or bi-yearly. So I think that's pretty awesome because it just sends off that relief of extra duty for the staff. And so have you been with the company since 1991, or what's your kind of start with Renue?
No, I joined in 2010. That was the one time we had a change in ownership, so I came in then. But when the passive owner left, but the founder remained, and the rest of the team, and we've supplemented that quite a bit. Prior to 2010, I spent time in management consulting and then in private equity. And for many of those years, I was looking for a company that I could get involved with on a very intensive level, ownership and operating. And it was very selective and took the better part of 10 years and eventually found Renue, and then just put my head down along with our management team. And we just got to work doing a lot of little things to support our franchisees and try to keep growing the business. And, we've had some good success since then, some of it for reasons beyond our control. But I think the tight focus has been a critical factor in our success, in that there's lots of cleaning companies, and we started out as a general one.
Yeah.
But we found that just being very focused, knowing our customers incredibly well, has been very important.
I agree. And so you probably have to learn a lot when it comes to brands and the typical, I guess, soft brands underneath those brands, like, Marriott versus a Courtyard and a Residence Inn and all those type of other stuff, in order to probably, I guess, and I'm just spitballing here, but to really fit the current need of that property.
That's right. There definitely are some general principles that apply across most of the hospitality industry, but then there are some brand specific as well. So we try to do our best to keep up on that, and we do that because we've got presence in many of the individual properties, but we also maintain good relationships at the corporate levels.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this question is kind of out of pure curiosity for me. What's been the major difference in running a company that doesn't have franchisees and one that does have franchisees? So like any major lessons or experiences that you'd pass down to anyone that's in a similar position? Because I've heard all sorts of different stories, but in the hospitality sector, I don't think I've actually gotten to hear the perspective of a president running a company with multiple locations, multiple owners at a franchise level.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of doing business, and of course there are many franchise systems out there, and a lot of them are in restaurants and retail.
Mhm.
But a number of hotels certainly operate as franchise systems as well. Certainly the big brands operate that way primarily, and as do we. So there's some trade-offs to everything in life, as opposed to having everything company operated or having franchises. But we think the franchise model fits us very well for a few primary reasons. One is that um, we can we our customers, we think, benefit from both, from the fact that they are going to have very attentive response and service from their local office, because the person and their team is they're the owner, right? So they're not necessarily just a employee that may be caring, but not as caring as someone who's an owner. So our owners are the ones that are interfacing with our customers. They're not necessarily doing the work, but they're managing it, they're overseeing it, and managing the customer relationship. So our hotel customers are going to get very and do get very responsive and individual and high quality treatment. But yet we support our franchisees. We help them a lot on the sales support, especially when they're starting out. We use our relationships to open up doors and create awareness, and we do provide a lot of other sales support, and, as well as the preferred vendor partnerships that we have. But the other big benefit is the training. I mean, we think we've cleaned more hotels than anyone by a considerable margin. So that experience that we can impart, even in our newest franchisees when they're just opening up, here's all the protocol and the systems for cleaning a hotel, whether it's doing wool carpet or whether it's restoring marble. We've done that many times, so we can help them learn that fairly quickly. So we're getting kind of the individual. Our customers are getting the individual caring treatment, but yet the work is being provided by someone who's done, an entity that's cleaned thousands of hotels over our nearly 30 years of existence.
Yeah, and I like the I guess the example of having like a core heart out in Chicago where you guys are, and then it pulses out to all the other individual operated branches. I think that is super key. Like you were saying, just because you get to test a lot of the new services, plus as well, you give that support. It's a good way to have that operator level. Like you said, the owner is usually going to be the one that's going to be very much involved with the client, and instead of having somebody that's just a manager, obviously they're getting paid, but when you're the owner, I think there's a lot more at stake, and so that with that it comes a lot more involvement, a lot more heart and passion. So that's kind of like the cool way to look at it. I think like that you guys do that. For me,
Yeah.
I want to kind of go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess the one other comment I'll make on that, Will, sorry to interrupt you, is that it allows us to have more offices by having franchise partners.
Yeah.
Because if we were to open offices in our own city, it would just take longer to do. So if and when we find a good quality of entity or person or a group of people that we think could be a good franchisee in a city, then we can get it up and running fairly quickly. That allows us to service more hotels, and it makes our brand Renue even more valuable and more important to our hotel customers, because we can service more of their properties across the country, and even now more and more around the world.
Exactly. Yeah, you're able to conquer those hurdles a little bit faster than the average business. Like you said, having to wait to open up a new building, and then versus having a franchisee that you're able to pretty much pass down the gauntlet to and really empower for that movement to go a little bit faster. I think just the overall efficiency is well thought out with that model. For me though, I want to ask and shift towards the question, I think, and the topic of what's on everybody's mind in today's world as we're all going through it. And we're all facing this pandemic and crisis, especially the industry, whether you're a restaurant, a coffee shop, a hotel, a vacation rental, whatever, across the board. I think we're all experiencing some traumatic times with this whole coronavirus. And so I wanted to ask and have you, from a cleaning side, because obviously this is a virus. This is something that gets passed down, through surfaces and then also through touch, when you shake hands and touch your face and all the other type of stuff. Um, what do you think, in your experience, what do you think we can learn from the coronavirus and the impact it's had on our industry and the world as a whole? Obviously, I think you have a unique perspective when it comes, from the cleaning side of the industry, where you are facing a lot of different, chemicals and fluids and all sorts of stains and damages and smells and odors and all the type of stuff that kind of go in, to the whole cleaning aspect. I think it really will shine some light. So what do you think we can learn from this whole pandemic that's going on, and especially with our industry as a whole?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, and certainly I think this is kind of a once in a generation or maybe longer event.
Mhm.
Not that we don't have shocks to our system, but certainly this one is very few people saw coming
Mhm.
until very recently, or at least on the scale that it's coming. And I think because it's so um, new and unusual, um, maybe not so new, but so unusual, in our world interconnected now, it caught a lot of people off guard and really not sure how to handle that. But trying to bring it down to a more kind of grassroots level, how does that affect cleaning? How does that affect hotels? Right now, since we're just a few weeks into it, at least in the States, and a few months across the world, there's just a lot of indecision and a lot of,
Yeah.
rightfully so, of fear. And so when that happens, people are somewhat paralyzed in their actions, and maybe we don't have the time to think clearly as to, first, how do we put out this major fire, and then start recovering, and then later, how do we address this so it doesn't happen again, or if it does, we're better prepared in the future. Um, there And I don't have certainly any great answers on those big questions, but
Mhm.
I just maybe it teaches us to try to have to plan in the future. I mean, I'll just look at my company. Is over the last 10 years, we've tried to diversify our customers, diversify our services, so that we are prepared for when there is a downturn. We didn't see one nearly to the extent of this, but we knew there would be
Yeah.
some economic downturn at some point. We somewhat tried to prepare for that, but you can never fully prepare for things like this. I mean, you try to put a lot of different scenarios in planning, but you can never fully prepare. So, um, and so I think there's some things we can do, but for a major event like this, there's just not a lot we can do. We just hopefully can think clearly and react swiftly and efficiently so that we can get up and running again, and try to put in some lessons learned from that. In this case, of course, lessons learned maybe, going forward, we think, and our big customers have told us, that cleaning will be more heightened, not just for their guests, but also just to make their employees more comfortable.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. And I I love that because it is, a lot of people that are still working through this. They obviously, every time you go into work now, everything is heightened when it comes to hygiene, right? Because we're always thinking about, you hear a cough, you're going to be looking around like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Do they have coronavirus or whatever? And I want to go back to, though, the downturn aspect, because I was talking with a couple of friends and colleagues and other people I've had on the show, and I know for myself, I'm 25, and I didn't experience the 2008 2009 crash as much as, I was a kid, so I didn't really understand fully the effect. But talking to, friends and family and colleagues, like I said, we all know downturns happen. We all know there's going to be some sort of crash. Obviously, we don't want it to be huge and to hit hard. But for me, I think going through it now and being 25 and experiencing this at this age, especially being a business owner and a person that is self-employed to an extent where I am fully depending on every single action I take in order to make an income. And so I think it was just so fast. That's the thing for me, is like, I knew, I've had discussions with friends, like I said, that were like, oh yeah, it's going to happen some point. But knowing that conversation was 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden it's here, is kind of, for me, that's, I think, the biggest like shock I've had. And I just don't know, from, I guess, your experience of life, if has anything like that, like a downturn, been so fast, like you kind of didn't see it coming?
Well, probably the two most recent ones were, of course, the 2008 financial meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
That happened very, very quickly, and there were some similarities because there was a lot of panic and a lot of fear and just uncertainty as to how if we were going to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
But we did, of course, and took some very quick movements, and then just lots of rebuilding. And then the one before that was 9/11, which had a very immediate impact,
Mm-hmm.
and also a lot of uncertainty, or I should say a lot of fear that this could happen again. We could have another
Yeah.
attack in the coming days. But the recovery there was a lot quicker than now will be. And 2008, hard to say how we're going to compare with that, but it definitely was very scary at the time. But once we got our arms around the situation, we had a path to rebuild. This, I think, is very uncertain when it will end, and so I think that's the real concerning part.
Yeah.
Not to mention, of course, not to mention the loss of lives in that,
Yeah.
which is tragic enough. And then talking about the rebuilding our society, our economy.
Agreed. Yeah. It's yeah, I don't think it's hard to compare, the 2008 and then to now, because I think, like you said, there are a lot of lives that have been impacted, through health and death and the unfortunate events that, a virus can do. And then, of course, I think that question is huge, is that we don't know, or that, not that question, that thought is huge on how we don't know how long this will go. And so that is, to me, the uncertainty. That's where the fear kind of comes in, is, okay, I know how to how to get back to what I'm doing, right? We know how to get our businesses back, usually on track. And that's the nice thing of being a business owner and operator. You get to really be the guide and the steering on that. But with this, it's always kind of in the back of your head, well, we don't know when this is going to be over. Obviously, like I was telling you earlier before we started recording, that Washington State just shut down yet as of yesterday. So we got at least 2 weeks of lockdown. And then other states are still operating at a higher function than that. So the spread of the virus is continuing to happen. And so I think that question for me is, or that thought for me, is really what's kind of lingering, and it's kind of adding the stress. But I kind of want to go into for you guys at Renue, how has it impacted your company and your business? Are you seeing an increase in getting cleans done, and to have your franchisees really, they're probably, are they seeing a pickup, or are they seeing less traction? Just because I know for where I'm at, a lot of hotels have actually closed their doors temporarily due to either city regulations or the state itself. So I'm kind of curious to see, from your standpoint, what's the impact for you?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's been changing a bit. When it first happened, the first week or so, we got very many calls
Mm-hmm.
from customers wanting us to try to help them or see if we can help them. And then once the hotels started closing and the layoffs, yes, things really slowed down quite a bit. And now, of course, the stay at home situation has not helped from our perspective, it's made it more challenging, although we are considered an essential business, and
Yeah.
we are able to help our customers even today in pretty much every state, and even the other countries that we operate. But there's just a lot of indecision, of course, a lot of cutbacks on spending. So things have slowed down significantly right now, and that likely will be the case till the hotels are close to opening up. Now, we do have in some of our offices and are working on getting our others up to speed. We do have a nice partnership that we have with Clorox to utilize their Clorox 360 system, so that it does address a number of pathogens, including the COVID-19.
Okay.
So that service is quite a bit in demand, and we think when the hotels, and we've been given good indications that when the hotels start to open up again, and of course the date's not completely certain, that we will be on the sort of the forefront, because properties need to, many of them, do a thorough cleaning before they can open up and let guests in again. So that's our view. So things are definitely slowed down now, and we're taking care of customers where we can, and then we'll be prepared to ramp up. And our offices, as I said, are available to work and are doing some work. One of the nice things that helps us through these slow times, and we've worked hard on this, is to try to keep low overhead. So we make it easier to get through this time period, just because there's not a lot of fixed expenses in our business.
The peace of mind when things do start to open up and pick up traction again. I think the peace of mind and the thought of people are still going to be a little cautious once this is all kind of over. And I think the importance of what you guys are doing is going to be significantly huge into the transition from when we start to get out of this. And especially for hotels, they are the number one thing I get asked, from being a hotelier to then opening up a vacation rental management company is, what's the biggest difference? And for me, it's just when it comes to properties, you're able to hold so many more bodies and occupancy, right? When it comes to a hotel. And I think with that, you're able to obviously increase revenue as a hotel, but then also as well, you have such a significant traffic amount of, people, different backgrounds, different cultures, different, countries even. And so with that, obviously cleaning and sanitation is significantly a big part of, providing good service and taking care of the guests, and not only the guests, but the team. And so for me, I just think, coming out, this is going to really shift towards that. And I think companies and hotels are going to look at it a little bit different. But I want to see from your perspective of, being in business and doing what you do and running, Renue, how do you think this is going to change the industry for the long term in order to recover and avoid as big of a hit in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm glad you said, how do I think, as opposed to how do I know? Because certainly I think it's a lot of uncertainty as to how it'll be, but my sense is that we'll slowly start to dig out of this hole, and travel will start to pick up again, but the hotels will ramp up accordingly when they see that the economy is more stabilized and travel is starting to hook up, and it'll probably open in staggered. Some hotels will open faster than others, and probably with a smaller crew, at least initially, and tend to outsource, say, our services and other services as much as possible. I mean, that trend has been happening for a number of years already, but I think it'll be accelerated. The trend to outsource services, the specialized services particularly, and cleaning will, as I mentioned, I think have there'll be more of a heightened awareness. Not to say it was neglected before, but I think they'll just be more conscious of it, both to protect, to help their customers, but also importantly to help their employees, give them more confidence and or comfort that they have a nice place to work where they don't have to be so concerned about their physical health. So I think those things will be, and I think hotels will want to promote that more and use that as sort of a marketing advantage as well to show that that they've learned and that they're here to provide a better environment again for not only their employees but also for their guests. So those are some of the sense that I have, and some of a lot of the cleaning we had done that is most in demand is the cleaning where you actually see a physical improvement, meaning there's a stain in the carpet, so we'll go in and we'll go in and make the stain disappear, or at least a lot less obvious. So everyone can kind of see the value for that type of work. There's less value in doing a service, could be a great service like helping get rid of pathogens, or I should say trying to prevent them.
Yeah.
But there's no physical evidence of that. So there was maybe less of a premium on that. But I think going forward, that may change.
I think so too, because the coronavirus, it's for me, it's an unseen thing. Everyone that has a cough or a sore throat, automatically now is going towards, okay, could this be a possible symptom? This is something, it's not like any other virus or outbreak of some sort where there's major physical what do you call it? Signs and symptoms where this is a pathogen that is unseen. It's common cold with a little bit of a kick to it. And so for that, and I think on the, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on the boutique side of the hotel industry, we're going to see, like you said, this is going to be used, in my opinion, and if I was running an independent boutique hotel, I would use this as a marketing and campaign type deal, like you said, for using the cleaning stuff that you were talking about, like taking extra time and care into the property, not only for the guests but for the staff, and use that because I think there's a little bit, like, I love like big name brands, IHG, Marriott, all the above. But I think when you coming from like working in a boutique styled hotel, there's a little bit of a different feel, I think, when it comes to your guests, because when your repeat guests continually come back, you get to know them on a big deep level. Like, you guys literally become a family in some sort. From my experience, we've had guests that come every year or multiple times a year or multiple times in a certain season, you name it, and you really get to spend time. And on a more, I guess, not big brand name level, you're able to kind of drop those uniqueness, I guess, of the property to them, saying, obviously they're always, you build a relationship, you start talking about things like this. And I think that's when you really get to start saying, oh yeah, we are taking extra precautions because we do care about you. Not only do we know that you and your family come here, multiple times throughout this time, but we also know that for all our guests, that this is something that's impacting everybody. And so we want to take care of you guys as well as our staff. And I think just on that personal hospitality level, that is where it's going to be mostly used, in my opinion, on the boutique side. And so I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out from the aftermath of all this stuff. But that's just kind of my thought from this perspective. But I was going to say, for you, in your opinion, what do you think this is going to do for the service industry in the future? Do you think this will change how we operate, in a sense of, I think one of the big predictions I've had is that we're obviously going to see a big increase in remote work, right? Zoom and Google Hangouts and all these, webinar meeting type services are going to see a big increase during this time. But do you think this will change how hoteliers and hotels operate for the future when it comes to operating on this like virtual level?
Yeah, it's a good question. My general belief is that human behavior does not change very quickly or very easily. So while I think there may be um, some movement or increased activity of remote meetings and remote working, and that trend has been slowly growing. I don't think it's going to overnight now change drastically. And maybe in the short term, there may be some pent up travel needs, both business travel needs that has been pushed off for 6 months, conference travel needs, and then of course leisure travel needs. And
Yeah.
the leisure travel has been growing sizably over the last 10 years, and I don't see that changing going forward. And that'll probably pick up first because less planning is needed to do that. So I think that'll pick up first, and then the business and the convention travel will continue. But the remote may have some more traction, but I don't think it's going to have huge impact from this situation. I do think that maybe there'll be more backup contingency plans put in place for disaster preparations like this on behalf of hoteliers, cleaning companies, but lots of different. I think that certainly be heightened as a result.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think that, and it kind of goes into, I think because I'm like I said, I'm a believer that I think it's going to shift in a lot of ways with this, but like you said, it also doesn't happen overnight. And then also with I think obviously a lot of jobs in hotels and restaurants, you have to be present, you have to be hands-on, you have to be at the property. So that will never change, I think, the industry, but just in an operation level from up, I think we'll see maybe a slight shift. But I want to ask now for kind of a wrap up on this episode. What are 2 to 3 things that you are currently doing during this time in order to keep pushing forward for yourself and for your team?
There's a number of things that we're doing. A lot of things are beyond our control at this point. But the first thing we're doing is we've increased our communication. I think we've generally been in good communication with our franchisees and our customers. That's how we operate, but we've increased it a lot, especially with our franchisees and also our employees. So even if we don't have a lot to say and certainly to predict, we're still just trying to communicate and reach out to them, not just me, but our team. Is there any special help we can do on the marketing side or whatever it may be? And we're doing our best on that end, and just be a listening voice. And as we get some information from one of our locations that can help the others, we send that out. So we've definitely increased the communication, and we've tried to be very honest. I mean, I think we're generally that way, but particularly now is that we're not painting a rosy picture. We're not saying tomorrow, we're going to go back to how things were, 3 months ago. But, we're just trying to tell them how it is, trying to offer encouragement, but not diluting them to reality. And they realize that also. They see it on their own. But we're also trying to give out hope, and a lot of them do have hope that this will be a period of time, and then we'll come back, and we may come back stronger. But there will be a lot of work that needs to be to rebuild. And our franchisees are understanding, and they're willing to do that. And even though it will take some time and effort. And that's really what we can do, is offer encouragement, be very honest, and give them our game plan going forward in the very near future, and then also to get through the storm, and then also when we come out of it, what's our plan and how we're going to try to help them at that point. So those are the things, and just a lot of reassurance to our employees. Not that we have a lot of, like you say, a crystal ball and can see what's going to happen in the future, but we're trying to give them as much reassurance as possible.
Yeah, and I love that. I think, when one store or one location learns something that can help the others, and increasing that conversation is huge. And I think it's going to be the key thing that gets us through as an industry, especially from your guys' point of, cleaning and sanitation, and just really upping, that type of service is going to be huge. And it's going to unify a lot of the, I think, Renue as a whole. And then of course, from the customer standpoint, that seeing that, I'm like, hey, we learned this from our property in, New Orleans, we're gonna try this over here. This is something that can benefit us. Let's go ahead and implement this plan of action. And obviously, like you said, there's a lot of stuff out of our control. We cannot control, if the government, puts a lockdown or does whatever, but we can control how we react. I think a friend of mine said this to me earlier yesterday. She said, life is 80% of how we react and say to certain situations, and 20% is, what happens to us. And I think how we take that is huge. And so implementing, moving forward, continuing to do what we can when we can, and, react in a positive way will be the majority of what gets us through.
Great. Yep. I think we just have to sort of call it like it is, and do our best, and realize that there's some things that are out of our control.
Exactly. Well, hey, David, I just want to say, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for doing what you guys are doing in the industry, and, stepping up in the way that obviously is much, much needed during this time. Obviously, it goes without a doubt to say that, sanitation and cleaning and all the type of stuff that you guys are doing is really important for any of the operators that are open and currently still, allowing guests and travelers into their properties. So I think, just being that in that role is huge. And so, and I also just want to say thank you for being in the ongoing conversation of what this topic is, and is forever changing and, constantly updating and going on. So I just want to really say thank you for being on, and I look forward to seeing you guys, continue to operate and to move the way you are.
Thank you, Will. We, especially now, we realize, we all got to try to help each other. Oh, this is great. I very much appreciate it, and really like what you do. We're big fans of yours, and the audience, if there's ever anything that you want to talk more about on this, obviously happy to do it, or just talk in general about franchising or any topic where you think our input might be helpful.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. There are more episodes to come, I promise. But as circumstances play out, things are changing every day. So please just be patient as more content is being created and to come out on this platform. Thank you guys for just tuning in, and to check out Renue Systems. Check out the link in the description below, and you'll find all sorts of cool stuff. I'll even put a link in the on the website at slicktalkthepodcast.com. What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.